Friends, we've all been there, sitting in a conversation when suddenly someone questions our intelligence. They mock, belittle, or toss a cutting remark our way. And in that moment, our instinct might be to lash out, defend ourselves, or shut down completely. But what if I told you that the most powerful responses are not born from anger, but from calm clarity, dignity, and a little wisdom? The very first and perhaps the most underestimated clever response when someone insults your intelligence is to simply pause. No words, no immediate reaction, just silence. Why is this so powerful? Because most insults are designed to provoke. The person throwing the jab is fishing for a reaction. They want to see you flustered, defensive, or angry. When you pause, you take away their fuel. Instead of giving them the emotional payoff they're looking for, you create space. And space is powerful. Think about it. Silence is not weakness, it's composure. When you pause, you're saying without words, I'm not shaken. I will respond on my terms, not yours. That moment of stillness puts you back in control of the conversation. It unsettles the person who insulted you because they expected fire, and instead, you gave them calm. Here's another truth. In that pause, you give yourself a gift. You give your nervous system a chance to breathe, to settle, to catch up. You protect yourself from blurting out something you might regret. You create time to choose a response that reflects your values, not your impulses. It's like standing at a crossroads. One road is reaction, quick, fiery, and often regrettable. The other road is response, measured, intentional, and rooted in self-respect. That pause is the bridge that lets you choose the second road. Let me share an image with you. Imagine someone throws a ball of fire at you. If you immediately catch it, you get burned. But if you let it drop, it fizzles out at your feet. Pausing is like letting that fireball fall. You don't have to catch every insult hurled your way. After you pause, the next clever step is to respond with calm confidence. Notice I didn't say loud confidence or aggressive confidence. I said calm, because true strength doesn't need to shout. It radiates quietly like a steady flame that refuses to be blown out. When someone insults your intelligence, they're really making a statement about themselves, their insecurity, their need to dominate, or their lack of emotional maturity. But in the moment, it can feel deeply personal. That's where calm confidence steps in. Imagine someone sneers and says, "Wow, you really don't get it, do you?" The knee-jerk reaction might be to defend yourself, argue, or throw an insult back, but calm confidence looks different. It might sound like, "Interesting perspective, I see it another way," or simply, "Thanks for sharing your opinion." Do you hear the difference? None of those responses are defensive. None of them hand your power over to the other person. Instead, they show that you are grounded. You're saying, you can try to shake me, but I know who I am. Confidence is not about winning the verbal battle. It's about refusing to let someone's words define your worth. When you answer with calm, you are protecting your energy. You are showing the room, and more importantly yourself, that your intelligence doesn't need constant proof. It speaks for itself. Here's the beauty of calm confidence. It disarms the other person. Insults thrive on conflict. When there's no escalation, no defensive comeback, the insult loses its power. It's like punching into the air. The force has nowhere to land. And let's be honest, the people who know you, the people who matter, already see your intelligence. They don't need you to perform it in that moment. The only person you need to stand tall for is yourself. Sometimes the cleverest response to an insult is not anger, not silence, not even logic. It's humor. Humor has this incredible ability to disarm tension, shift the energy in the room, and remind everyone, including yourself, that no one else has the power to shrink you. Think about it. When someone says something like, "Wow, you're really not that smart, are you?" Most people expect you to bristle, to get defensive, or to fire back. But imagine instead you smile and say, "Good thing my brain isn't on trial today." Suddenly, the sting of the insult evaporates. The power dynamic changes. Everyone can feel the tension break. Humor works because it's unexpected. It sends a message. Your words don't control me. Instead of giving the insult more weight, you lighten it. You show that you're not only secure in yourself, but also playful enough to turn a cruel remark into a moment of levity. That's not weakness, it's mastery. But here's the key. Humor isn't about mocking the other person or trying to out-insult them. That only drags you into the mud. True cleverness is about flipping the script without losing your dignity. For example, if someone says, "I can't believe you didn't know that," you might reply with a grin, "Guess I'll just have to keep surprising you." Lighthearted, confident, non-defensive. It's also worth noting that humor protects your peace. It signals to your own heart, this is not a battle worth bleeding over. By laughing, by choosing levity, you keep yourself from carrying the weight of their cruelty. You walk away lighter, freer. There's another hidden gift in humor. It makes you memorable for all the right reasons. People may forget the details of a conversation, but they remember how you made them feel. And when you respond to an insult with grace and laughter, you leave behind the impression of someone unshakable, someone who cannot be reduced by cheap words. Now, here's the caution: use humor wisely. If you're in a setting where the insult is serious or deeply harmful, humor may not be the right response. In those cases, boundaries or directness are stronger choices. But when the insult is petty, meant only to poke at your pride, humor is like a shield. It bounces negativity right back where it came from. When someone insults your intelligence, one of the most clever and disarming things you can do is ask a thoughtful question in return. Why? Because insults thrive on reaction, but questions flip the power dynamic. Instead of you being on the defensive, suddenly the person who insulted you is the one under the spotlight. Imagine this. Someone smirks and says, "Wow, you really don't get it, do you?" Most people would either snap back or feel crushed. But what if you responded calmly with, "That's an interesting thing to say. What makes you think that?" Now pause for a moment and let that sink in. You didn't insult them back. You didn't lose your cool. You invited them to explain themselves. And here's the secret. Most insults collapse under the weight of being explained. They were meant to sting, not to stand up to scrutiny. When you ask a question, you force the other person to reveal their true motive. Sometimes they'll stumble, sometimes they'll backtrack, and sometimes they'll realize their words were careless. Either way, the balance of control shifts. You're no longer the target. You're the guide steering the conversation. Asking questions also demonstrates emotional maturity. Instead of shutting down, you show curiosity. You show that you're not easily rattled. And curiosity is a form of power. It says, I am strong enough to explore this, even if your intention was to hurt me. Here are a few powerful examples you can use. Can you explain what you mean by that? Why do you feel that way? What are you hoping I take from your comment? Each of these questions puts the responsibility back on the person who insulted you. They now have to own their words. And in that moment, the stag. When someone insults your intelligence, the most courageous thing you can do is to own your worth, not defend it, not justify it, not beg someone to see it, but to stand tall in the truth of who you are and refuse to let another person's words rewrite your story. Here's the thing. Insults about intelligence cut deep because they poke at a fear many of us carry. The fear of not being enough, not smart enough, not capable enough, not worthy enough. That fear is universal. It lives in classrooms, boardrooms, even in family dinners, which is why an insult to your intelligence can feel like a spotlight on your deepest insecurities. But here's the truth. Your intelligence is not defined by their judgment. It's not measured by how quickly you answer a question or how flawlessly you perform in a conversation. Intelligence is broader, richer, and more layered than that. It's creativity, it's problem solving, it's emotional awareness, it's resilience, it's wisdom earned through lived experience. So when someone tries to strip you of that with a single cruel remark, you have a choice: to let them plant doubt in your heart or to root yourself deeper in your worth. Owning your worth might sound like this: I'm confident in my abilities, thank you. I don't measure myself by your opinion, or even silently reminding yourself, I know my value and no one can take that from me. Notice how none of these are defensive. They don't argue, they don't fight, they simply affirm. Because owning your worth is not about convincing them, it's about reminding yourself. And here's something powerful. When you speak from a place of self-worth, people feel it. Your presence says more than your words ever could. Others begin to realize that you are not someone who can be easily shaken or defined by their narrow view. Now, does this mean you'll never feel the sting of an insult again? Of course not, you're human. But owning your worth means you don't hand over the keys to your self-esteem. You don't let someone else's opinion decide how you see yourself. Think of it like this. If your intelligence were a house, an insult is like someone throwing a rock at the window. Owning your worth is making sure the foundation is so solid that no rock could ever bring the house down. When someone questions your intelligence, their goal is usually simple: to pull you into a battle, to shift the focus onto your supposed shortcomings, and to leave you feeling small. But you have the ability to reclaim control of the moment by steering the dialogue back to what actually matters. Here's what that might look like. Someone says, wow, that's not very smart of you. Instead of defending yourself or sparring with them, you might calmly say, anyway, let's get back to the point. Or, interesting, but let's focus on the task at hand. Notice what you just did. You didn't deny their insult, but you also didn't give it energy. You redirected. You moved the spotlight away from their attempt to shame you and back onto the conversation that truly matters. That's not avoidance, that's strategy. Redirection works because it sends a strong, silent message. Your attempt to derail me won't work. I choose what deserves my attention. It shows leadership. It shows maturity. It shows that you are more interested in progress than in pettiness. Think of it like steering a ship. The insult is a wave trying to knock you off course. You could crash into it, you could stop and fight the wave, or you could simply adjust the wheel and stay on your path. Redirecting is about refusing to let someone else determine your direction. It's also an act of self-preservation. Arguments drain energy, insults steal focus. By redirecting, you protect your mental and emotional space. You say to yourself, this moment does not deserve my peace. And that is an incredibly intelligent choice. One more important thing, redirection is not weakness. Weakness is being dragged into every fight. When someone insults your intelligence, the easiest thing in the world is to fire back, to throw your own insult, to meet heat with heat. And in the moment, retaliation feels satisfying. But here's the catch. It almost always leaves you feeling worse later. Because instead of rising above, you get pulled down into the very same mud you never wanted to stand in. That's why one of the most clever and, yes, courageous responses is to offer grace, to choose strength over spite. Grace doesn't mean you excuse their behavior. It doesn't mean you let them walk all over you. Grace simply means you refuse to let someone else's ugliness dictate your character. You don't mirror their insult, you model dignity. Imagine this. Someone sneers, wow, I didn't realize you were that clueless. The typical reaction might be to snap, at least I'm not as arrogant as you. But offering grace looks different. You might say, I hear you, and then let it drop. Or even, that's one way to see it before moving on. You're not giving them what they expect. You're not feeding the fire. You're leaving the room with your peace intact. And here's the beautiful truth. Grace isn't really about them. It's about you. It's about protecting your inner world from turning bitter, because when you retaliate, you carry their poison with you. But when you offer grace, you release it. You leave it where it belongs, with them. Now, let's be clear, offering grace does not mean tolerating disrespect endlessly. It doesn't mean letting someone repeatedly insult you. That's where boundaries come in. But for those one-off moments, those quick jabs meant to test your confidence, grace is one of the strongest shields you have. It takes a strong person to win an argument. But it takes an even stronger person to walk away with grace, knowing you never allowed someone else's cruelty to reshape your values. So the next Time someone tries to diminish your intelligence, remember this: you don't need to retaliate to prove your strength. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is to stay soft, to stay kind, and to stay untouchable. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. There comes a point when silence, humor, or grace are not enough, because while those responses work beautifully in certain moments, repeated insults or constant attacks require something firmer: boundaries. Setting boundaries is not about being rude or confrontational. It's about protecting your self-respect. It's about saying, this is the line, you don't get to cross it. When someone consistently insults your intelligence, one of the most powerful things you can do is respond directly and clearly. For example, I don't appreciate comments like that. That was disrespectful. Let's keep this conversation respectful. If you continue talking to me this way, I won't stay in this discussion. Notice something important. Boundaries are not arguments. You're not debating with them about whether you're intelligent. You're not defending yourself or trying to prove your worth. You're simply stating what you will and will not allow. Boundaries are about clarity, not